good to see y'all. Good to visit with the folks in the parking lot also. As I said before, come and use your best judgment to listen to all the information, but y'all look different without that windshield in front of you. Y'all, I'll tell you what, it blessed my heart though, these weeks and the coming together with the First Church in Welch and the other churches that joined us in that was really a great thing. This afternoon at 5 o'clock, we're going to do our Sunday school lesson like we've been doing the last 2 weeks. You can come in here, or you can join us with that meeting conference. If you don't know how to get onto that, we have a sheet of paper there. If you came to the parking lot services, it was listed there too. You call one number, it asks you for the second number, you put that in, and then you get to join us. And you get your choice of looking at me or not. I noticed the last couple of times people have chose not to, but that's okay. It takes me off the spot a good bit. Use your cell phone. That way you don't have to worry about a long distance charge on your other one if you're going to do that. But we're going to be here, so hopefully we'll be open. We'll have as Reverend said, the arrangement's going to be about the same. And I can see y'all pretty good from here. Can y'all see me? Yes. Okay. Well, you can hear me? A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the prison epistles. And one thing in the prison epistles that I started out with was Paul knew that he was doing God's purpose. And he also knew that he wasn't going to stay in prison where he was at the time. And we know that from Acts chapter 23:11. It says, that night the Lord appeared to Paul and said, be encouraged, Paul. Just as you have been a witness to me here in Jerusalem, you must preach the good news in Rome as well. He knew that God was going to send him to Rome. So he knew that this wasn't the end of his life. This wasn't the end of his chapter. This wasn't the end of his ministry. God had more things set out for him. We were talking this morning on the porch praying for people who are fighting the disease, but there's a lot of other diseases going on out there. There's physical and there's mental and all those other kind of things. And a lot of people are having trouble with depression and all those kind of things that go, and they're just as deadly if you don't have hope, if you don't have the assurance that God's got these. And God's Word says that He does. How many of y'all know what it takes to go to heaven? It's really just one thing. What's the one thing you have to go to heaven? Jesus. There's no other way. There's no other name. Nobody else died for your sins. Nobody made those. But how do you receive that gift that He wants to give? Romans 10:9 says, confess with your mouth Jesus is your Lord. Believe in your heart God raised Him from the dead. And you shall be saved. I emphasize shall. It's a definite term. You shall be. Just like when the Lord told Paul, you're going to preach for me in Rome. You're in Jerusalem now, but you're going to preach for me in Rome. It's going to happen. Guess what? It's going to happen. You're going to have victory over this life. This life that can kick you in the teeth pretty regular. Amen? And right now, it's no fun for lots and lots of people. And yet, sometimes in the darkest place, God gets to shine a little brighter. We've said that before. When you can light a big lighter on the beach at noonday, nobody's going to notice it. Right? But you go out there at midnight and on the beach, light a big lighter. How far away can you see it? Light shines bright in the dark. We're called to be God's light. Now, we're going to be talking about Paul's shipwreck. It's going to be pretty much all of chapter 27. Don't get scared. I'm going to use a modern translation. There's more in there. This is going to tell the story. We'll put some of the finer points into it. King James can make some details in there that are fairly important to know. But I just want to tell you the story because it's a pretty adventurous story. You wonder why people don't make movies about stuff like this. You know, it's really something else. And Paul was in prison for a couple of years back in the home country, in the Holy Lands. And they started, I don't know if y'all ever heard of people using the courts in unfair ways, but it was happening. And they were they even tried to break him out of jail. This was the religious people, by the way. They wanted to break him out of jail so they could assassinate him. And finally, he got to the point where he was cornered enough that he said, well, I want to appeal to Caesar. And they all kind of had to drop back and not say anything. You've heard about people that get their rights, and they say, well, I want an attorney. Then they have to almost quick question him right then. Well, he says, I want to appeal to Caesar. And next thing you know, they're fixing to ship him to Caesar. Now, one thing you need to know is Paul's been on ships before. And way back, he'd written, before this came out, way back, he spoke about things he'd been through. He said, 3 times I was beaten with rods, once I was stoned, 3 times I was shipwrecked, and once I spent a whole night and a day adrift at sea. This was not a seafaring group of people. And how many times, well, how many plane crashes would I want to go through before I decided, flying an airplane is just not for me? It was just as scary to them. I always thought I would ride an airplane more if you could pull over up there when you had a flat or something, and you could fix it up there and not have to land and all that kind of stuff, because there's not many ways down, right? But that's how it was. It was scary to the people that went to sea. And he's done what? 3 shipwrecks, and not that it was an easy pickup. One day, a whole day and a night at sea. So with that background, let's go to chapter 27 of the Acts of the Apostles. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for loving us. We thank you for your word. Lord, we know that every jot and tittle, every letter that you put in your word, Father, it is for us. Lord, it's you revealing yourself to us. You revealing your will. You've given us the wisdom that is above what mankind can come up with. And Father, we know that we need your Spirit to understand what you're saying. So Father, I pray you pour your Spirit out on us today in your grace, Father. Undeserved favor, Lord, that you open up the Scriptures to us and show us where we are, whose we are, and what we have to do. Thank you, Father, for loving us. In Jesus' name, amen. So when the time came, we set sail for Italy. Now the word in there, we, is interesting because who wrote the book of Acts? We know the Holy Spirit. But whose hand did he use? He used Dr. Luke. Right? Luke. They wrote the book of Luke, and the second part, it covers a lot of the New Testament, just 2 books, but they cover a whole lot. And so we find out that Luke is going to travel with, apparently, his buddy on a boat from Israel to Italy. At a time when these weren't considered luxurious cruises. In fact, he's going on a freighter and all, but they've got prisoners, they've got a contingent of soldiers. How many of you got a friend that you would do that? You'd go get on the boat and be gone for a year or 2, and you're going to ride with them to their prison, maybe even to their death. Be an amazing friend, wouldn't it? Well, Luke was an amazing friend, obviously. Anyway, we set sail for Italy. Paul and several other prisoners were placed in the custody of a Roman official named Julius, a captain of the imperial regiment. Nero was emperor at the time. You remember what Nero's pastime was? When he'd go to the Colosseum, it wasn't a soccer game. It wasn't a football game. What was it? It was gladiators and throw the Christians to the lions and all kind of stuff like that. And they kept running out of them. And so they had to do what? Ship some more in to die in the Colosseum. Horrible things. And so you can figure these guards had to be pretty much on duty to be sure that these people didn't escape. They knew what would happen when they got to Rome. And so he's kind of in one of those groups. He hasn't done anything wrong, but he's with people who have, and some I'm sure that had. Some just got caught up in the deal because Nero really didn't care. Anyway. The circus, that's right. Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was also with us. We left on a ship whose home port was this long word there, but it was in that local area on the northwest coast of the province of Asia. It was scheduled to make several stops at ports along the coast of the province. Apparently this was a kind of a short-range vessel. It wasn't a big ship. It wasn't for out in the open sea. It was to cover the coast, kind of like a taxi service going from one place to the next. It gets so far, and you turn around and go back. And that's how this ship made its living. This one wouldn't take him all the way to Rome. In fact, the next one he got didn't get him there either, but we'll get to that. The next day, we docked at Sidon. Julius was very kind to Paul and let him go ashore and visit with friends so they could provide for his needs. That's a pretty good situation, huh? I'm a prisoner, but I'm going to go see my friends. I'll be back to the prison ship in a little while. Doesn't happen often, does it? Paul had a lot of credibility with these people already. Right? He had a lot of credibility already. God showed his grace through them. Putting out to sea from there, we encountered strong headwinds. Y'all know what strong headwinds are? Get on a bicycle and go to Jennings at 15 mile an hour east winds and have my girth. It's like a sail that catches you and slows you down a whole lot. It's no fun. I was listening to, I read one commentary where the guy said that he was in the Coast Guard and he was in Alaska, and they had a boat that would do 16 knots. So they had it at full power going into a storm, and it was going backwards at 2 knots. That's a headwind, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's pushing it backwards, even though they got full speed ahead going into it. Had to turn it and run with it. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. So we sailed north of Cyprus between the island and the mainland. Keeping to the open sea, we passed along the coast of Cilicia and Pamphylia and landed at Myra in the province of Lycia. These are names that, by the way, if you read through Acts, you'll see them in other places. There, the commanding officer found an Egyptian ship from Alexandria that was bound for Italy, and he put us on board. Most of the grain, or a lot of the grain they got came from the Nile Delta. And they had ships that would come up from there. They weren't small ships. These were, listen, at that time, 2,000 plus years ago, the ships that they were riding in for there that hauled the grain were like 180 feet long, 60 yards long, 50 feet wide, and their depth as far as their hold was 40 feet. That could haul a lot of grain. If you look at the top of this roof to the floor there, that's 25 feet. How big was that boat if it was 15 feet deeper than this roof? Yeah. So this is a big boat. And so they get off the little taxi boat and they get onto this big boat. And we're going to see a little later how many people were on board. We had several days of slow sailing. That's what happens when you go into the wind. And after great difficulty, we finally neared Cnidus. But the wind was against us, so we sailed across to Crete, along with the sheltered coast of the island, past the Cape of Salome. These people could navigate back then. If you look at the map, you get a picture of the Mediterranean, and you follow, you can follow right along the map with each of these places, and they could pick an island a couple hundred miles away, and you can't see a couple of hundred miles on the water. And they would go and go to that island. They were assured pretty much they would get there. What did they use to navigate? Mostly the stars. They could figure it out. We struggled along the coast with great difficulty and finally arrived at Fair Havens. Sound like somebody who built a nice little residential community, huh? It could be next to a trash dump, but if you're going to try to sell the property, you name it what? Fair Havens. You know, apparently it was a dump because they didn't want to live there. They didn't want to stay there in the winter because what they would do is they would travel certain months out of the year to get to over there. And then the weather got so bad in the Mediterranean, they wouldn't do it anymore. They would lose too much. They tell me until this virus hit that the ships hauling folks up to Alaska, they make a lot of money. Sherry and I, on our 30th wedding anniversary, we took that trip. It was an amazing trip. It was kind of neat. You could see the mountains to one side and the ocean to the other, and it was just really amazing. But they said that they don't do that after September. You just don't do that after September. And there's only certain months that they will actually do it. And so instead of taking a chance and trying to make more money, they just shut it down. Of course, it's shut down now anyway, but they just shut it down. Well, these didn't have all the radar. They didn't have the Coast Guard watching. They didn't have any of those kind of things. And they know we don't travel at certain times. Later he's going to say at a certain time, we'll talk about that when we get to it. We had lost a lot of time. The weather was becoming dangerous for sea travel because it was so late in the fall. King James says it this way: it was already after the feast. Which feast? You may see that in your Bible in this verse. Which feast? The Feast of Yom Kippur. And this year, the historians have looked back, that would have been about October 5th that year was when the feast was. So if September is when you were supposed to stop sailing, they're pushing it already on. They're already into October. Paul spoke to the ship's officials about it. Have you ever been in charge of something, but you've got somebody that loves to tell you how to do your job? Have you ever had that role? And it's no fun, and you know what's really aggravating when they're right? but you can figure the captain, and here comes this prisoner, says, you know, now's not a really good time to be sailing. Now, he does have experience, right? 3 shipwrecks? That's a lot of experience, but he says, now's not a good time. And here's what he told us. He says, men, he said, I believe there's trouble ahead. If we go on, shipwreck, loss of cargo is a danger to our lives as well. So, who's saying this? Is it the captain of the ship? No. Is it a sailor? No. Is it a guard or a soldier? No. Who is it? It's one of the prisoners. And normally the prisoners wouldn't want to go because they might be facing the Colosseum and all the things that happen there, you know. And so, do you think they give you much credibility? Now, I'll tell you something that's really interesting. He says we could lose our life there. You know what? I never thought of this before. You look at the commentary and such, it was pointed out they aren't going to lose any lives. It's really amazing. Which tells us that the Holy Spirit didn't tell him to go tell them these things. He was doing that from his earthly understanding. And he wasn't wrong. It was not a safe thing to be doing, sailing at this time of the year. But he went and told them that. And now he can do what later? Now he can go back later and say, I told you so. How many of y'all love that I told you so? Anyway, so he said that. But the officer in charge of the prisoners listened more to the ship's captain and the owner than to Paul. And the owner than to Paul. Well, the ship's captain would have been an expert, right? He would have been an expert. And the ship's owner, he would know a lot about shipping, wouldn't you? You would normally think if he was going to invest that much in it. Let me go ahead and just pass this out. Did you know that sometimes experts are wrong? Go figure. It happens, doesn't it? The smartest man in the world who just passed away a year or two ago that they gave him credit for, what's his name? Stephen Hawking. He wasn't sure if there was a God or not. Sadly, he did. I pray that he came to know the Lord before then, but he's supposed to be the smartest man in the world. It says, since Fair Havens was an exposed harbor, they didn't like Fair Havens. A poor place to spend the winter. Maybe not enough. I don't know if you know, sailors love shore leave if it's in the right place. I don't think this was the right place. And I get that from what it said. Most of the crew wanted to go to Phoenix, farther up the coast of Crete, and spend the winter there. So they outvoted. Did you know sometimes the majority is wrong? Did you know that? According to the Bible, that narrow is the way to God and wide is the way to destruction. Sometimes the majority is wrong. It doesn't mean always, but sometimes it's wrong. And in this case, the majority is wrong. Phoenix was a good harbor. It only had southwest and northwest exposure, it said. When a light wind began blowing from the south, the sailors thought they could make it, and so they pulled up anchor in this big ship. And they sailed close to the shore of Crete. They're not going to get too far away. They can make it to that better port as a place to spend the winter. That's what they're shooting for. Right? But the weather changed abruptly. And there was a typhoon-strength storm called a nor'easter. There's another name for it in the King James. It burst across the island and blew us out to sea. Is God making it easy for Paul to get to Italy? He says he's going, but so far, what's the road been like? Not great, huh? And it hadn't got rough yet. It's fixing to get rough. I remember first time I got on a helicopter to go offshore, we had to wait a long time, and then we got a thing from the boat that was carrying our equipment out there, and you could hear, all the storm behind them and all on the radio. We were laying there listening to the dispatcher, and it said that I've been out here 5 years, and this is the first time I've ever had to turn around and come back, but I'm coming back. And so the dispatcher said, why, is it bad out there? He said, no, it'd have to get a whole lot better to be bad. So that's what it was out there. And then I remember the next thing that the dispatcher said, a helicopter pilot who was coming to get us called and said, hey, do you still want to get them hands out there? And here's what the dispatcher said. Yeah, try to make it. I've never been on one of them things before, and they're saying try to make it. I'm sure that's about how they felt now that they're on this boat. And by the way, we're on the second boat, which was a 150-foot workboat, and that sounds like a big boat, don't it? When it gets out in 15-foot seas, it gets beat to smithereens. You never know which way you're going to be leaning or falling or crashing, because when you go over a 15-foot wave, on a 150-foot boat. The front end may be way up here, and when it comes down, the water is not soft when it hits. And it just jars everything in you. And you do that for 12 hours. It's really no fun. Now that's metal, and I wondered how that thing held together. I was praying that it would hold together. My prayer life picked up more then than it had been in the years before that. But yeah, I was praying it would hold together. They're in a wooden boat, 180, loaded to the gills with grain. And they're in basically a hurricane. The sailors couldn't turn the ship into the wind, so they gave up and let it run before the gale. They couldn't fight it, and so they just let the wind push it. We sailed along the sheltered side of a small island named Crowlin, where with great difficulty we hoisted aboard the lifeboat that we were towing behind us. If you're in that place, don't you want a lifeboat with you? Sure. And so they didn't want to lose it, and they were dragging it, so somehow they hoisted that thing up, and they didn't make them light back then. And I'm sure they don't tell us how heavy it was, but they wanted that thing safe, so they pulled it up. The sailors bound ropes around the hull of the ship to strengthen it. This thing is crashing and banging. The waves hitting from the back, going over the ones in front, getting knocked side to side and all. And it says they were afraid of being driven across the sandbars of Syrtis off the African coast, so they lowered the sea anchor to slow the ship, driven before the wind. It said they would literally take ropes and go up to the bow of the ship, and you can figure that thing is bouncing every which way. Go underneath the boat, drag it to the back, tie it across, pull it as tight as they could, and then keep doing that until they kind of had suspenders all the way around the ship to try to keep the wood together. Is that desperation? They're not in a good place, are they? The next day, gale force winds continued to batter the ship. The crew began throwing the cargo overboard. Why were they sailing? To haul cargo. And now what are they doing with it? The following day, they even took some of the ship's gear, tackle, and threw it over. They're scared. The terrible storm raged for many days, blotting out the sun and the stars until all last hope was gone. How could they navigate? What did they have to have? The stars. And I can tell you, I've been out in the woods as a kid hunting, and I did pretty good as long as I did. You could see the sun. I knew which way east and west was. And Sabine River was to the west, and the highway I lived on was to the east. If I got too lost, I could just go one way or the other and get to someplace that I knew. But when you can't see the sun, and I've been out there on cloudy days, you're not sure which way you're going. And I wasn't in any particular danger. These people are scared. All their radar's been cut off. There is no communication. There's nobody to talk to. It's just them in a storm. In a storm. You ever felt that way? Didn't know which direction to go. Everything was just battered against you. You wasn't sure if it was going to hold together. Take desperate steps. Some of the stuff that was important yesterday is not important today. It's been stripped away, hasn't it? All pride is gone. All of those things can happen. And the devil would love you to fall into despair. What did they say? Their last hope was gone. You know, that's kind of where God taught me to love Him. I was in a spot like that. A really dark, dark hole. First year Sherry and I were married. And I can tell you, I didn't care if I woke up the next day or not. That's how dark it can get in our minds and all. But you know what God can do from there? He can rebuild. He can take us to a different place. It is no fun. It is scary. You don't know which way to go. Everything is coming apart at the seams. Right? Everything is. And then you find out what? God's bigger than you. But we've got to turn loose of some things during that time. Things like pride, things like possession, things like our old understanding, our old dreams that really weren't going to help anybody, including us. Right? And start to see things from God's perspective. These folks are on a boat, and there is no hope except in who? The Lord. If only somebody were on that boat, they could tell him that there's a real God. If only somebody were on that boat, they could tell him, you think this storm is strong, you should see my God. Amen? If only somebody was there. No one had eaten for a long time. Finally, Paul called the crew together and said, men, you should have listened to me the first time. I've done told you so. Right? But he built some credibility because he had told him this isn't the way to go. You would have avoided all this damage and loss. But take courage. Who's the encourager on the boat? Is it the captain? Is it the owner who had the money, the financier? Is it the sailors? You know, I always think when I read this, the Gilligan's Island song. Maybe was a mighty sailing man, skipper brave and sure. What are they doing right now? They're melted down, aren't they? Right? And this short prisoner, Paul wasn't known to be very tall. Walks up and now suddenly, he's captain of the ship. Not because he's got some bars on his shoulders, but he's captain because who are people turning to? The one who has what? Not just hope, but assurance. Amen? How many of you have the assurance that God's got this? How many of you know that you shall be saved? Then you've got assurance. Amen? His Word. I love that verse in the song Amazing Grace. Some people say, you know, we ought to do a couple of verses of Amazing Grace because it's long. You know what? I'm not a verse in that one I like to leave out at all. And I love that His Word, my hope, secures. We have security. Amen? And it's better than those ropes that they bound that thing with. It's better than the security they thought they had from the finances once they sold their cargo. It's better the insurance of having some stripes or some high place in life. They have the assurance of God, and He gets to proclaim it. And in doing that, He was given authority. He earned it. Right? Because God's anointing was on Him. He says, take courage. None of you will lose your lives. Well, that's changed from before, but remember the first time He told from His earthly wisdom, now He's speaking from something He got directly from God. There's a big difference, amen? Anyway, says, even though the ship will go down, the ship's going to wreck, guys. We're not going to save the ship, but you'll be saved, He said. By the way, did you know that this earth is going to burn one day? But you will be saved if you're in Christ Jesus. Did you know that? It's going to be a wreck, but you can be saved. And I pray that you are. And He said, don't be afraid. This is what well, let me go back and read that verse. For last night, an angel of the Lord, whom I belong and whom I serve, listen, He says, my God, I belong to Him. He never really called Himself a prisoner of Rome. He'd say, I'm a prisoner of Christ Jesus. Didn't matter who had Him, he still what? Belonged to Jesus. Right? Jesus, He captured his heart. How many of y'all had somebody that's just captured your heart? And no matter where you go, they got your heart. That's the kind of prisoner he was. He says, the one I belong, the one I was served, stood beside me. And he said, don't be afraid, Paul, for you will surely stand trial before Caesar. Well, duh, he already told him that. How many times you got to be told that God's got a destination for you? How many times do I have to be told that God's way is always better than mine? Because His is perfect. Mine's often selfish. Right? Mine's often comfort grabbing like those guys that didn't want Fairhaven. They wanted a better place to stay the winter. What did He cost them? They got a rough ride out of it, haven't they? Right? Anyway, so he got told again, Paul did. He told me I'm going to see Caesar. And you know, God don't like us. He told me that back in chapter 23 too. And God doesn't change those things. He said, what's more, God in His goodness has granted safety for everyone sailing with you. Faith and hope on this boat came through God's ambassador from the kingdom of heaven, didn't it? Faith and hope came on this boat through God's ambassador from the kingdom of heaven. If only we had a bunch of those running around. Wouldn't it be great if God just sent a whole bunch of ambassadors from the kingdom of heaven and faith and hope could come through them to a despairing and hopeless world? Who's called to be an ambassador from the kingdom of heaven? Every Christian. Every one of us. But we've got to look at it through God's eyes and not man's eyes. It don't mean that it's comfortable. Paul wasn't comfortable on that boat. Paul wasn't comfortable at all. And he had credibility because he was riding those storms with them, right? God didn't say, well, you get the lazy boy chair that's, in some sort of rig so that you don't feel the bounce. He didn't do that to Paul. Paul didn't need either of those days. But he had credibility and he still had hope in their same experience. What's more, God has granted safety to everyone sailing with you. So take courage. I believe God. It'll be just as He said. He didn't argue it. I see the people that really love to argue, and you're not generally changing people's minds. What's the best argument? A satisfied customer. What do you say? Take courage. I believe God. I'm satisfied. You can be scared and despair and all that kind of stuff if you want to. I'm going to hang on to God because He's held on to me. Even when I didn't deserve it. He held on to me. He reached places He got me. It will be just as He said. But we will shipwreck on an island. It's going to happen. It was midnight on the 14th night of the storm. That's a long storm. By the way, they were afraid of being blown from the north shore of the Mediterranean Sea to the south shore by Egypt. That's how big the storm was. It was blowing them off, of course, hundreds of miles. They were across the Sea of Adrian. The sailors sensed that land was near. Didn't know how they did that, but they said pretty much in the ocean you don't have real smells from land. You get around land, you might smell some smoke or this or that, but they had that sense. They knew something was up. They were getting close. And so they dropped a weighted line and found out that the water was about 120 foot deep, about 20 fathoms deep there, fathoms 6 foot. A little later they measured, it was only 90 feet, only 15 fathoms deep. What does that tell them? We're getting shallow. Now, in some ways that's good. We're getting closer to land. In some ways it's bad, because what happens to a ship when it hits the wrong thing? Made out of wood. I'm talking about the ship made out of wood. What if it hits a rock or something? At this rate, they were afraid they'd be driven on the rocks along the shore, so they threw out 4 anchors from the back of the ship and prayed for daylight. Another thing that was interesting, I'm doing a little research on this, and you know they found 4 anchors in this place off this island, Malta. And one of them that they say, the rest of them kind of got wrecked or whatever. People, do what they do with stuff that looks expensive. But one of them, the markings and all lined up with these dates, and there were 4 together. Scuba divers found it. So they did what? They were afraid they'd be there. They threw out their 4 anchors and waited for daylight. Then the sailors tried to abandon the ship. The sailors. Remember, you got the soldiers on there guarding the prisoners. You got the sailors. They're in charge of doing the ship. They're not in the military. They're sailors. They're merchant marines. And anyway, they go to the back and they say, we're going to lower the lifeboat. And they're trying to make people think they're going to just tie some anchors on the front. What are they thinking? We're going to get to shore without getting too wet. But Paul was on to it. Now all these soldiers and all these captains, they weren't on to it, but Paul was. So Paul said to the commanding officer, you will all die unless the sailors stay aboard. The soldiers didn't mince words. So the soldiers cut the ropes of the lifeboat and let it drop away and just drift away. I'm sure that didn't make them happy with the sailors. I've heard the Navy and the Army get together and fuss at each other and all that kind of thing. I'm sure they were not happy a bit when they cut the line and dropped that lifeboat off, but they were all still there. As the day was dawning, Paul urged everyone to eat. You've been so worried that you haven't touched food for 2 weeks. Please eat something now for your own good, for not a hair on your heads will perish. Then look what he did. Then he took bread and gave thanks. Does that sound familiar? When we do that, that's usually in the middle of a what? Worship service. So in the midst of a storm, fixing to crash a boat, what does Paul decide to do? Have a worship service. And they must have some Louisiana folks at heart there, because food was a comforting thing to them. How many of y'all know what comfort food is? Anyway, took the bread, gave thanks before God, broke off a piece and ate it. Then everyone was encouraged and began to eat. Who's the encourager on the boat? God's ambassador. How many people on this boat? Listen, all 276 people on this boat. That's a lot of folks. That's a lot of folks. After eating, the crew lightened the boat further by throwing out the cargo of wheat. Apparently they held some back because that was their money. When morning dawned, they didn't recognize the coastline, but they saw a bay with a beach. I'm not sure if it was open then for the coronavirus or not, but maybe it was. Anyway. But they saw a bay and a beach, and they wondered if they could get to shore by running the ship aground, so they cut the anchors and let it run across the sea. What they didn't know was there was a reef between them and there, a shoal. The bow of the ship struck fast, but the stern was getting hit and torn apart by the waves. Isn't it amazing it made it that far before it started coming apart? What do you call that? When it just so happened they were inside the shore when it finally broke apart. How do you spell coincidence? Capital G-O-D, amen? The soldiers, they just wanted to kill the prisoners, make sure nobody swam ashore and escaped. Because remember, if you lost a prisoner, you got their sentence. You and your whole group that was watching. But the commanding officer wanted to spare Paul, so he didn't let them carry out their plan. Now, that meant the commanding officer put the whole group in jeopardy, because if anybody escaped, they would be in trouble to death. But that's how much he cared about Paul. Had Paul been working on relationships on this boat? Obviously. So he ordered all who could swim to jump overboard first and make for land. The others held on to planks or debris from the broken ship, so everyone escaped safely to shore. Whew. They're home and they're safe, right? Have you ever been through a storm like that? Been through it maybe months, maybe years, maybe weeks. I don't know what it's been, but you got through, and about the time they finally were to the other side. I've got just a couple verses I want to share with you. Once they were safe on shore, in chapter 28, we learned that we were on the island of Malta. Y'all might remember the Maltese Falcon. It was a famous movie from way back. Humphrey Bogart, I think. But anyway, from the island of Malta. Did y'all get to go there?
Yes, we got to go to Malta.
The people of the island were very kind to us. It was cold and rainy, and they built a fire on the shore to welcome us. Paul was gathering an armful of sticks and was laying them on the fire, and a poisonous snake, a viper, it says in King James, driven out by the heat, bit him on the hand. And the people saw it hanging from his hand. Anybody had any close-up experience with snakes lately? Y'all might have seen the picture. I had one on my bike about 6 inches from my leg that I rode with about a half a mile. Turned out it was a harmless snake, but it wasn't harmless when it was that far from my leg. It was a 7-headed dragon whenever I first saw it. But anyway, it's a scary thing. But what would you think if it's hanging on your hand? And that meant that it's a viper. It's poisonous. They got the hook-type fangs in it, and it's hanging there. What more can you do? How many days he been at sea? What if they swam? Threatened by the soldiers to kill him, all that kind of stuff, and now he's just getting firewood. And look what's going on there. Could he get mad at God and shake his fist? Or could he say, I'm going to Rome. God's done told me. Which could he do? He could do either one. Amen. We can do either one. We always got a choice, don't we? And God said, you're going to Rome. And so he moved on. Now, God gave him the grace to do that, but that's pretty much what he did. Now, the people, they had their own ideas. They said, he must be a murderer, because no matter what he does, he's fixing to die. He must have done something real bad. In their mind, if you're a good person, good things happen. If you're a bad person, bad things happen. How many of y'all learned that that's not how it works? There's bad people that get all kind of good things happening to them for a while. But literally, there's hell to pay. Right? And there's good people that have soldiered through some horrible situations. But I'll tell you what it did do. It brought credibility for Paul, because he's in a new bunch of people in this little island of Malta. And they know what those soldiers and sailors have learned. This is an ambassador from the kingdom of heaven. Amen? He's God's man. And this God must be real, because look what he just did with that snake. The people waited for him to swell up and drop dead, but when they waited a long time and saw that he wasn't harmed, they changed their minds and decided he wasn't God. You go on and you find out in the rest of that he's taken to see the governor, the Roman governor. He goes and heals his dad, and then people start bringing to be healed. And he gets to share the Word of God on a little island that really wasn't hardly on their maps. They didn't recognize the shoreline. Remember that? You think God cared enough about that little island that he would let that ship go off course and go through all that kind of stuff? You think God cared so much about those soldiers and sailors, Gentile soldiers and sailors, that he would let them see his presence in their midst through this guy Paul? And that doctor-looking fellow is writing down all the notes as they go. I'll tell you another side thing on that. Did you know that they say from ancient literature There's no more in-depth study of how mariners, sailors at that time handled storms than Dr. Luke's writings. It's all really something to get the history. What does that mean for us? What's the takeaways when you leave this? One, you're an ambassador of the kingdom of heaven. God says you're going to be back in heaven one day, amen? We're not called to join in the panic. We're called to act wisely and listen to God and push through. You're the reflection of God in somebody else's life. And just because you're doing the right thing, you have to give the battles to God. Paul couldn't stop that storm. Who could? But he could ride it. And sometimes in life, we're going to have to ride. If God is going to get His purpose done, we're going to have to ride through some tough times. How many of you are already veterans? You know what that's like. Most of you are over 27. You're a pretty good veteran by now. You know, sometimes we have to turn loose of things that were holding us back so that we can be ready when the time comes. They had to get rid of even the ship's tackle, even the so-called lifeboat that really didn't give them much safety. If a 180-foot ship couldn't get them through the waves, how was a little lifeboat going to do it? And yet some were willing to desert to get that little lifeboat. Amen? We live in strange times. People say, what's going on there? They say, this is just strange. You know, it's just different. But is this the storm God's got us to ride through and be His ambassadors and continue to point to Him and have an assurance about us that others don't have? Even if God calls us home, we're assured of where we're going. Right? And while others are panicking, speak God's way, God's word, and let them see it in your actions. And what can God do with that? It can change eternity for those watching. What if we give up, though, and just say, it's no use fighting anymore? Who wins? You can still be saved. I'm not questioning that, but who wins? How many more people lose because we weren't competent ambassadors? So I'll say this. Hang on to God. He's assured you, whatever you go through, He's got you. He's got this. And whatever mission He's appointed for you to do, He's let you know somehow that this is your mission from Him, not just what you've conjured up, but from Him. It's got to get done before you leave. Or God's a liar. Which is, my God's not a liar. I believe. Thank y'all for being here this morning. If you haven't made Jesus your Lord and Savior, please do so. We're going to have just a few minutes of silent prayer. We're going to stand up and pray, and then I'll complete the prayer, and then we'll be dismissed. I would ask you this when we leave. Don't crowd up at the door going out. But give people space, or 6 feet of space, and respect one another in that. Some people are very afraid of this. Some people are not so afraid. And, you know, it's a real situation, just like that storm was. Respect people's different understandings of it. Amen? Let's stand.